Hello, my name is Brian Stewart. I am the chairman of Little Leaven Children's Homes, and thanks again for coming to check out our Little Leaven Child Development Program. This is the portion, this is Little Leaven 201, 5 parts to teach about whole person development. Uh, and this first part is emotional growth and development. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Um, Let me go ahead and share screen. Okay, so emotional growth and development. So the goal is always with all of these development portions, all the parts of the whole person development program. The goal is always maturity. We have to define what it is that emotional maturity is. And an emotionally mature person has mastered 4 different parts as defined by Little Leaven Children's Homes. That is 1, emotional literacy; 2, emotional compartmentalization; 3, emotional recollection; and 4, emotional capitalization. We're going to start with emotional literacy. Okay, so there's 3 parts to being emotionally literate. That's first, recognizing the emotion. Second is admitting the emotion, because it's a whole different thing between recognizing that you're feeling an emotion and then admitting to it. Okay, and then describing that emotion. Okay, that's emotional literacy. Uh, so emotions come from our environment. They're born from our environment. How does that work? So the way that works is that we will experience something that causes us to feel an emotion. So, and then we experience these things by absorbing it through our 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, hearing, and what's the other? Sight, smell, and sight, smell, touch, hearing, sight, smell, touch, hearing, and the 5th sense. It eludes me right now. But anyways, you get it through your 5 senses, or taste. That's what it is, taste. Okay, so you get it through your 5 senses, and then you're saying, okay, well, how does that work out? So let's talk about that. So you might see something, and then it makes you feel something. Okay, you might see a couple holding hands, and then you feel um, maybe you're gonna feel happy because that couple is happy. Maybe you'll feel sad because you recently had a breakup with someone that you love. But it gets started by you seeing that. It can also be caused by something like smell or sound. Sound is easy. You hear a song and it makes you feel a certain way, and then smell. Well, you might smell chocolate, and that might make you have the emotion of anticipation, because you're getting ready to have a good meal, right? And so forth, so on and so forth. So um, like we said, we must be able to recognize them, admit to them, uh, and we can't just recognize them in ourselves. We also have to recognize them in others. Okay. So let's talk about how we're recognizing emotions. So emotional literacy. So let's just, before we get into this, let's do a little exercise. All right. So we got some faces here. So go ahead and think about what are these people feeling right now. Start with the face on the left. I mean, clearly she's smiling, so her emotion it will say it's happy, right? There's a lot of ways you can express, you can describe that emotion that she's demonstrating, but we'll just go with happy. Um, Left, we'll go in a circle. So the top left, that's what is that? It's surprise, right? she's surprised something happened, and she's like, oh wow. And then then we go across to the middle guy, and he's sad. The next one is anger, the top right. And then the far right, that's fear, right? He's afraid. And then the bottom right, that's the disgust emotion. She's disgusted with what's going on, or with something that she sees. So that's her emotion, is disgust. And then the bottom left, that one's a little bit tricky. What is he? It's gonna. I mean, it doesn't look like he's happy. He's definitely more happy. He doesn't look like he's angry. I would say that a good word for that is maybe the way he's looking at it. He looks like he has contempt, like he doesn't like, what's going on. Maybe he's a little bit sad that he has to deal with it, but it's not like he's depressed sad, or even grieved sad. Maybe he's a little grieved, but he's not not sad like that guy in the middle. He's not crying. So his emotion and is I would say it's more like a contempt, and what we're getting to here is that some of those emotions are a little bit easy to define, or most of them actually. Every one except for the bottom left is the only one that's a little bit harder to explain what that person is feeling. So what we have, and this is why we break it down like this, is we break it down into 8 basic emotions. Those are emotions that are more easily to define, and those are the emotions that we base other emotions on. So the 8 basic emotions that little Leaven uses, and other people use 7, or they'll use different words for the 8 basic emotions. And I'm not saying that anyone is wrong, but we have to choose one. So we chose these 8. So you'll see 8 basic emotions. Trust. On your left, you go with trust. Going down, joy, sadness, anticipation. On the right, fear, anger, disgust, and surprise. Now, I put on the top of those, I put a question mark with good on one side, and a question mark with bad on the other side. So trust seems like, hey, that's a good thing. It's a good emotion to trust, or to feel trust. Yeah, okay. But what if you feel trust around a guy who's not a good person? Okay, so does that mean that the emotion is good or bad? Joy. So, but what if you feel joy when someone has something bad happen to them? Get to feel joy when someone is in pain or something. Sadness. Is it good to feel sad when someone else gets a reward? So maybe necessarily sadness isn't always good, but then maybe sadness isn't always bad either, because maybe it's good to feel sad when you lose, because maybe that will help you to not lose again. Or you do feel sad when someone gets hurt, because maybe that'll encourage you to help keep someone from getting hurt in the purpose in the future. So let's move on to the bad ones that we put on the right. Fear. Afraid of anything, then you'll be willing to do things that are dangerous to you. So having a certain amount of fear is good. There's fear. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Is an old saying that was said a long time ago. And anger, I was going to hit on anger, because typically we say anger is we want to say anger is always bad, but anger is not always bad. There's nothing wrong with being angry, and when you are angry, you should feel comfortable in saying, yeah, I'm angry at you because of such and such. But anger is not always bad. It is bad when anger causes you to punch someone in the face. That's bad, but the anger wasn't so much bad as much as the action is what was bad. You know, you could be angry, and that anger could cause you to boycott an organization that's not treating people fairly. That is anger turned into a good result. So anger is not necessarily bad, and we should not be ashamed when we get angry. And if someone says, "Oh, you're an angry person," well, there's nothing wrong with me being an angry person, because guess what? Me being an angry person has caused me to start this organization to help children. You know, or whatever your case is. There's nothing wrong with having these emotions. These emotions are normal, and they are things that, it's just a matter of what are you going to do with the emotions that you feel. So we're going to go on. So we talked about those 8 basic emotions. So you have so our basic emotions are so you have the outside ring, where you see optimism, love, and aggressiveness at the top. So you see optimism and love at the top, and then that's in the outer ring. Then you go into the next ring, and you'll see serenity if you're looking at the top. And then you go down to joy, and that's the basic ring. Okay, so that's the basic ring that we were talking about. That's where our basic emotions sit. So as we go clockwise, we'd start at joy, and then we go to trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. Okay, so those are the 8 basic emotions. Let's see if I can get my mouse. Okay, here's my mouse. So joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, and anticipation. Okay, those are your basic 8, excuse me. And so and then what we do is why we say these are the basic, because the other emotions are either a combination of emotions, or they are more or less, I guess, stronger. They're either stronger or weaker emotions. So, for example, joy. We start with joy. So joy is the basic emotion, but then we have serenity, which is is not as strong an emotion. Okay, but it's because serenity is when joy is when you're talking about joy, you're thinking about someone singing. But then when you're talking about serenity, it's more like someone just kind of at peace, and but happy, right? So that's why, meanwhile, the more strong emotion is ecstasy, or they're just you're so, like, it just kind of like, just that one just kind of knocks you out with happiness. I like that. Let me go over to here to anger, and the red over here on the left. So anger is the basic emotion. Meanwhile, annoyance is a less, oh, he doesn't anger me, he just annoys me. It's a less strong emotion. While rage, that is when you're turning red, and you want to do something. Your rage, here. And then let's go to fear. Okay, so we got fear. All right, and then we go left to the right, and that's less, whatever. Go to fear, and fear is less strong. And then terror. Oh, that's like when you're frozen with terror. That's a much stronger version of fear. Okay, so that's the way that works. Okay, then we have the combination of emotions like love. Love would be a combination of joy and trust. It's a harmony in between the two of those. Love. Okay, so somewhere, and then love. There are stronger emotions of love. So you feel stronger. Like would probably be over here, and then love might be here in the basic, and then over here might be, just adoration or something like that. Okay, so that's how that works. Oh, and it says not universal. Um, I, you know, you're going to find variation based on cultures, I think, with these. Emotional literacy. recognition. So, it's one thing to know what the emotions are. Okay, it's another thing to recognize those emotions in yourself and in others. Okay, so trust, and what we're doing is we're just kind of trying to describe what these emotions are, so that way the person who's getting this instruction can later instruct the child on how he knows that he's feeling certain feelings. Okay, so when you feel trust, you're gonna feel calm. These are just verbal ways to explain these emotions. You're gonna feel calm. You're gonna feel at ease, and you're gonna feel confident. Okay, when you're joyful, typically you're gonna want to smile. You're gonna want to laugh, and you're gonna feel some energy. Okay, when you're sad, you're gonna want to cry. That's how you know you're sad, because you want to cry. Um, and then when you're feeling anticipation, that's when you get the butterflies in your stomach, or maybe you feel like you need to go to the bathroom. That's the anticipation feeling. That's how you know that you're anticipating. Because some people, they're going to go do a performance, or they're going to participate in a sport, and they start to feel these butterflies in their stomach, and they don't understand what that is. And then they go to you and they say, "Hey, I feel like there's something in my stomach. Like I feel like I have to go to the bathroom or something like that." And then you explain to them, "Oh, well, that's just your body anticipating the sport. You don't really have to go to the bathroom. You just need to stretch and then run, or whatever sport you do, or whatever activity or hobby you're participating in. That's the anticipation." So fear. When you're afraid because your heart is racing, your breathing is, you have to, you actually notice yourself breathing differently, or maybe you forget to breathe. Um, and then sometimes fear results in paralysis. Sometimes it results and this is more terror than fear. When you lose control of your bowels, perhaps, or you start shivering. That's, that's losing control of your bowels is usually terror, and paralysis is usually terror. And running, a lot of times, that might be terror too. Just turning around and hightailing it out of there. Those are all indications of fear. Okay, or maybe terror. Breathing might just be anticipate. Well, anyways, anger. Uh, when you're angry, usually you're gonna feel hot, right? People's faces will turn red, or the heart begins racing. You feel energy once again, which is similar to the joy. I might start shivering when you're really angry. That happens too. Disgust. Usually, you're gonna feel something in your stomach again, or you're gonna kind of gag. That's a disgust feeling disgusted. Surprised. You might get that paralysis once again. You might get that breathing. You might have a fainting episode. Surprised. Um, that's more like a shocked, right? He's shocked when he faints. It's more than surprise, a little bit stronger. You have different, stronger emotions. And then you have, you're going to gasp a lot of times with the surprise. So those were verbal. Right here we had verbal descriptions, and then we also have, the Leaven also has this what I like to call emotion sensation charts. Okay, so um, over 700 people from Finland, Sweden, and Taiwan participated in a study, basically, and in it they showed the participants pictures or videos, and then they asked the participants, and those pictures or videos should have emotions. Like it could have been people sitting in a carriage, a horse carriage. It could have been people at a wedding, or it could have been people, um, you know, uh, at a funeral, something like that. And then they would ask, okay, so they would ask the participants, what sensations they were feeling in their body, or where they felt certain sensations. And then on top of that, what they would do was they would monitor the person. Okay, so this is the chart that they developed, and you can see from the left to the right, you see that these persons have different sensations. Now the white, if it's something that's white, like for here in happiness, you see it's white there. That means that it was very, very strong. Well, meanwhile, black means that it means they feel like a strong sensation going there, right? A strong sensation going there is white, and then yellow is not as strong. Like there's yellow there of a strong sensation coming, like a strong energy coming to you, and then red is not as intense as yellow. Okay, that energy coming to you. New black, like for instance in anger right here, is there's no feeling there, or neutral is a good example. There's no feeling. It's just kind of no feeling at all. Meanwhile, blue means that you've lost sensation. Okay, that means, like, so with depression, you feel like you've lost feeling in your legs. Okay, and then when it's white around the blue, that's stronger. Then so white always just means either really strong sense feeling coming to you, or really strong feeling going away. Okay, and then neutral means that there's just kind of no feeling. So you can see, and maybe you notice this so you look at anger. You see they've got all the intensity in their upper part of their body. Have you ever been angry? Don't you feel like, if you can take yourself back to when you felt angry, you can feel that emotion all up in your upper part of your body. You feel all that energy that coming to you in that upper part of your body. Okay, um, and you feel it in your arms. You feel it in your hands and everything. Maybe that's why you want to punch somebody when you feel angry, because you have that energy going to your hands, right? Okay. Then you have love. Let's go to love here. Okay. Then we have, we talk about the heart. Well, look at all the energy you feel right here in the heart with love. It's all in here. And that's why you want to bring someone into an embrace. You want them to there where that energy is. Okay, so that might be why that is. Meanwhile, you have feelings of depression. How many people have felt depressed? And when you feel depressed, don't you feel like you've lost power in your legs? Like you don't want, like, maybe that's why people. So if we go over here to surprise, maybe that's why people all of a sudden they feel weak in their legs. Maybe that's why your legs collapse underneath you, because you lose that energy in your legs. That's the sensations people feel, right? And so we can use these sensation descriptions in order to help children to understand what they're feeling. And we put one of these charts up, with the teachers, and so they can see, and they can help describe them to themselves and to the kids what it is they're feeling. So that way you can identify these emotions when they come up. All right. And I want to point out, we drew arrows here. Remember, we said that anxiety, if we go back to our other chart, let's go back to our chart. So we look at fear. Anxiety, we put apprehension here, but anxiety is kind of like a lower form of fear. Right? So if you look at the fear chart, you see they have a lot of intensity here. And then they have with anxiety, they have this, a lot of intensity here as well. And where the parts that before were neutral, now they're blue. The stronger. Well, actually, excuse me. Anxiety would be stronger than fear. Anxiety. If you have an anxiety about something, that's like I have anxiety for flying. So anxiety is pretty strong. So anxiety is stronger than fear, and that's why now this yellow has become even bigger and brighter. Okay, and the neutral portions in the arms have turned blue because they've lost even more sensation. Okay, because anxiety is stronger than fear. because fear is the basic emotion, while anxiety is a stronger emotion. Then let's look at this one. So we have sadness, and we've got shame. Okay. Sadness is more of a basic emotion, while depression is much worse than sadness. So you see where we had a little bit of intensity here. Now that red intensity from the chart here to the chart over here has turned black, and so it's become neutral. Meanwhile, these parts that were blue have become so strong that they've turned from blue to the white. See that? So depression is a stronger, more intense feeling than sadness. And the same goes for, and then, and we'll see that envy and contempt, they're almost the same. And that's why we don't have, they're almost the same, envy and contempt. And then shame is not as a strong version as sadness. Sadness is stronger, but it's the same. But this is just more, this one here is just sadder because they've lost the yellow here. There was yellow here, and now that's become black. All right. All right. Okay. So that's the way that works. It's a good useful tool. So now that we know how we feel, now what? Okay. Now what? What do we do with that knowledge of knowing how we feel? So emotions affect production. So anxiety can help us to focus. If we're anxious, that can help you to focus. Anger can fuel action. Fear can save your life. So that's a positive thing that can come from those emotions. Those are positive, productive things that can come from those emotions. Okay? But they can also be negative, because depression can lead to suicide. So we may want to be anxious about something, or we may want to be afraid of something, but we don't want to be like terrified to the point where we can't do anything, and then it causes us death. Right? So there's a balance in between the different emotions. Okay? It's okay to be sad, but it's not okay to be depressed, because it can lead to suicide. Okay? Fear is for me, fear is a real good one, because it's really easy to go the wrong way with fear. And so I want to just demonstrate that here with a little thing we got here. So I'm just going to press this here. So we got a video. See if it works. Okay, stand by. We're playing this video. Here we go. Trying to get this. It's hard to get the sound together.
How feel you?
Cold, sir.
Afraid, are you?
No, sir.
See through you. We can.
Be mindful of your feelings.
Your thoughts dwell on your mother.
I miss her.
Afraid to lose her, I think.
What has that got to do with anything?
Everything. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. I sense much fear in you.
So basically trying to demonstrate, and I thought this movie just did a great job of demonstrating it. A lot of people don't like that movie, but it's just good and bad. But anyways, what he talks about with fear, fear can lead to a lot of bad things. And fear is the reason why, so many people they feel the need they need to own so many things. They need to own 4 houses and own so many cars because they're afraid of losing what they have, when they give to others. And that's why other people don't have things. Fear is what leads really to racism. And a lot of groups like the Ku Klux Klan, and the neo Nazis and things like that. Those groups all come from people afraid of something. But there's really no reason to be afraid. That God has provided everything we need. That's one of the little leaven. The way little leaven whole person development works is everything complements each other. Because so in this case with the fear, and the emotional growth and development, we also have our spiritual growth and development, which you'll get to later on in another class. But in this, if a spiritually mature person recognizes that there's no reason to be afraid, because generally justice always happens. A spiritually mature person realizes that the justice always overcomes. Even though you may not see it happen, it will happen. Justice will overcome. And that's one of the principles of Little Leaven Children's Home. So generally, we're pretty anti-fear, although it can't negate the fact that fear can save your life. Having a healthy fear of getting hit by a car may make you put on a seatbelt. So, anyways, go to the right, emotions and physical health. So if you aren't careful about getting angry all the time, then it's not good for your heart. Right? It's being anxious all the time is not good for your brain health. Nor is it being always nervous or surprise, or anticipation all the time is not good for your digestion and weight loss. So, and it's actually been proven, that the more you smile and laugh, the longer you will live. So now that you know that you feel, what you want to do is you want to identify ways that you can feel emotions such as happiness more often than maybe sadness and anger. Like we said before, anger isn't bad and can be used to fuel action, but being angry and having allowing anger to rule you is not good for your brain health and your heart health. Meanwhile, being happy is very good for your health. And so we should, although we need to be open and admit to when we have different emotions, we should try to surround ourselves with good emotions, and we should try to think positive thoughts in order for us to be healthy, okay, and have a good long life. Because when you're healthy and having a good long life, that allows you to help others. And then other people don't have to help you if you're healthy. So it's just taking care of yourself is actually taking care of others. So emotional literacy in others. So now we talked about how you notice the sensations that you're feeling in order to identify your own personal emotions. Now, another part of emotional literacy is recognizing the emotions in other people and recognizing how other people are feeling. So the best identifier to knowing how someone is feeling by their face. Okay. Because other things can be deceptive. Okay. For example, some people will say, oh, when someone leans in or gets close, that means something. Or perhaps when someone folds their arms. Well, that depends on the culture. The culture might be that when you talk to people, you fold your arms. Some people will say, oh, if he's not making eye contact, that means that he's lying. And that's just not true, because there's a lot of cultures in which people don't make eye contact because making eye contact is a form of disrespect. So you can't assume that someone is trustworthy or not, or or just because they're making eye contact. That's a poor assumption once you cross over to different cultures. Now we should teach the mannerisms of the culture to our children, because the children live in that culture. However, as this world becomes even more and more diverse, and as we become closer and closer through technology and communication and the internet, we must understand that the best indicator of emotions is through the face. Facial expressions are universal. Everywhere on the planet, when people are happy, they smile. On the planet, when people are sad, they cry. Okay, so that's universal. Now this definitely. Now we talked about how the different parts of the child development program, like emotional growth, social growth, spiritual growth, they overlap. In this case, this really overlaps heavily with social growth and development, because a big part of social growth and development is teaching children to identify different gestures so that they can understand what someone is communicating, because a big part of communication is expressions and body movement and tone. And you'll hear more of that when you watch the social growth and development portion of the whole person development, as of Little Leaven's whole person development. So we talked about within emotional literacy, you have to first thing is to recognize the emotion. The next part is admission. Okay, and you think sometimes you might want to say to yourself, oh, recognizing and admitting is the same thing, but it's not. It's not the same thing. It's really difficult for people to admit what emotions they're feeling. So and there's a whole history behind a lot of times the emotions that we are feeling. We like to go. I want to talk about atraumatic experiences and traumatic experiences in order to better describe describe the process of admitting emotions. Okay, so you have atraumatic experiences, and those are emotions that are tied to short-lived. There are emotions that are easily accepted and do not need to be explained. Okay, so if you're playing in a basketball game and you win, hey, I'm happy. Don't need to explain it. Don't need to break it down. I made a basketball shot. That's a good thing. I lost the game. Hey, you're sad because you lost the game. Very easy. Now, when someone has a traumatic experience, what usually happens is you go into the 5 stages of grief. Okay? And it is okay to go through these 5 stages. Stage is denial and shock, then pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, then depression and loneliness, and acceptance. And it's very okay. And as a leader of children, as a teacher of children, we need to be aware that children will deny, or people things, but that's a part of the natural process. It happens all the time. You tell someone, hey, this person is cheating on you, and the first thing they do is they deny it. And so you're going to want to say, oh no, they're wrong for denying that person is cheating. They're wrong. Well, no, it's a part of the process of acceptance. It's a part of the process of grief, because they're going to be grieved that they found out that person was cheating on them. Okay. And these stages may reoccur. So to break down these stages in a brief way, it is denial and shock. And the way usually people will describe themselves being in this phase is they'll say something like, or the stage, they'll say, oh, I don't believe it. I don't believe that happened. I don't believe they did that. I can't believe it. I hear people say, I can't believe it happened. That's they're in denial, right? Now the danger of this stage, and if they don't get out of the denial stage, then they end up living a lie. So you want them to get out of this stage, but at the same time, you need to realize that this stage is natural. So when someone denies it, you just let it go. They'll eventually come to the truth. And that's kind of really up to the spirit. The suggestion is to continue to be honest with this person. They may deny that it happened. They may deny its truth. You just, if they ask you though, you just tell them, well, listen, it's on videotape. You can see that the police officer, dropped a gun next to the dead person. You can't deny it. And eventually you got to come to the truth. Pain, guilt stage is, I should have. You feel guilty. That's what when people say, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. That's what usually people kind of react. The danger is that they quit, that they don't try anymore. Okay, because they feel like so guilty that they feel like they can't do anything anymore because that guilt just kills them. You don't want to be there. You don't want to quit. You need to not give up. And it's what you want to do is suggest to the person is to continue going. Move on. Don't quit. And that's what you're going to hear them say, I should have done this. And then your response should be, well, you didn't. Do it better next time. Don't quit. Keep going. The third stage is anger and bargaining. And this is a lot of times people who are religious, they'll pray and they'll say, Lord, if you give me this, then I promise it, I won't do it again. Like, so here's something minor, like they lose their keys. And they'll say, oh, if you help me find my keys, Lord, then I'll make sure that I'll always put them in the right place. Okay. And then, and it's just, it's just, and then what'll happen, in the anger and bargaining is that the danger is that they lash out. Like with the key incident, then they'll say, you know what? I'm not going to loan anyone my keys anymore. I'm going to make sure that no one can borrow my keys, and then that way they don't get lost. And I'm not going to help anybody if they need the key to the door. I'm going to keep the key. And that's them lashing out. Okay. And that's a minor thing. Obviously, a major lashing out would be where, I'm going to join, like this. I've seen this before. Someone of one racial background gets hurt by someone of another racial background. And so they'll say, well, I'm never going to that guy ever again. That's them lashing out. That's ridiculous, right? Or like, I'll never date another girl again. I'm going to be a homosexual now. And that's, I don't mean any offense to the homosexuals, but there are people out there who, well, I'm giving up on the opposite sex and I'm going to be same sex, and that's not right. You don't do that just because someone hurt you or because you got hurt. That's lashing out. Instead is you need to tell them, hey, look, you're angry, run. Okay. Go exercise. You're angry, so why don't you some music, or let's go to a party and dance. A controlled positive expression. Okay. Or let's write a poem. Okay, depression. Okay, so this is dangerous because depression can lead to suicide. If anyone ever talks about hurting themselves, you have to take them very seriously. In the 5 stages of grief, and this is where someone can end up not making it out. They get stuck in depression and they kill themselves, and that's the worst thing that can happen. So you have to, if they say they want to hurt themselves, if they say that they want to run away, if they say they want to quit, those type of things, you need to take them seriously and say, look, don't do that. You need to talk to someone. And really, if someone wants to hurt themselves, we need to go for the most professional help we can if it's available. Not all countries, Little Leaven's international organization, not all countries have psychologists to help with this type of thing. We can to get the most professional help we can when someone is contemplating suicide. We need to take it very seriously. The last stage is the one we want them to get to, acceptance. And someone has accepted something when they can say that they learned from it. And they can share about what happened. And that's the suggestion is when someone has accepted it, you get them to teach and share. Okay. The reason why bad things happen is so that it can build us character. Bad things build character. And that character is a testimony to the truth. Gives and inspires hope. All right. So suffering begets character, and character begets hope. And that hope comes from when you share those experiences with others and how you overcame. And that's what you want them to do. You want them to share with others and how they overcame. All right. That's where we want them to be at. So all these things are going to happen, but we just got to keep suggestions that I have posted up here in mind and keep them trudging through these stages. And then the end goal is that the suffering begets character, and the character begets hope. Emotional literacy. So we're still on emotional literacy, and we talked about how the first start part was admitting. The first part was identifying the emotion. The second part was admitting to the emotion, and that's what we did after the acceptance, admitting, same thing. Okay, and the third part is description, and this is when you actually say, okay, look, you identify your emotion. Okay, I'm angry. Identify the source of the emotion. I'm angry because you were looking at that woman and you made me feel. I'm angry because you were looking at that woman's parts. Okay. Identify the memories linked to that emotions. When you looked at that woman's parts and you gawked at her and you whistled at her, it made me feel like I was less valuable. Okay, and identify the memories linked to that emotions or situation. It made me feel like how my old boyfriend, my old abusive boyfriend, he reminded me of my old abusive boyfriend and how he used to always put me down. Or it reminded me of how my father used to tell me that I was ugly. Identify positive ways to express that emotion. Okay, so we go back to the 5 conflict handling styles in social growth and development. We haven't gotten there yet, but basically, and we're going to get there, so we'll kind of table that till later. But basically, when you have a conflict, you're either going to choose between the issue or the person or the relationship. Okay, so you have to choose whether or not you want that relationship to work or you want to break away. And that's going to be part of how you identify whether or not you want to have you want to be put in that position again. And position again, then you're going to break off from that relationship. And we'll get to more of that in the 5 conflict handling styles later on. But just know that handling styles is you have to identify whether or not you want to feel that emotion again or not, or whether or not that person, how valuable that person is. And that's what you're looking at. Because the person is very valuable, then you'll be willing to feel the emotion again. If you're not willing to feel the emotion again, then you're going to break off and not deal with that person. Okay. Another thing that you have to identify when you express yourself is you have to identify the timing. Okay, so, and this is what so a good thing that was told to me before is that in order to be right, and in order to express yourself correctly, you have to be 3 things. 1, you have to be right. 2, you have to say it in the right time. And 3, you have to say it in the right way. In order to say it at the right time, then you have to time it right. You can't say it when we're doing it when the wrong time, or when the other person's not in the right mindset. Okay, because you have to know the other person, how to give it to them in the way that they can receive it, and it's knowing your audience, and you have to know how they're feeling at the time. At that time. So that's all part of the emotional description, describing the emotion. And then you have to decide whether or not the emotion response was desirable. However you responded, is that the way you have to, is that the way you want to respond again? Because you felt this emotion and then you responded some way, and then you respond the way you wanted to. You need to analyze that. Okay, or should you have responded a little bit stronger or a little bit weaker? And then you have to declare your future intentions when you're describing these things. So we talked about how, first you'd say, this is the emotion I felt, this is why I felt that way, this is what it reminds me of. And this is only for traumatic stuff. This isn't for atraumatic stuff. And then you have to say, okay, so what do we want to do about this? Well, I don't want you to whistle at a woman walking down the street again, or whatever. All right. So an emotional mature person has mastered emotional literacy. Okay, so we just talked about emotional literacy, and now we're going to talk about emotional compartmentalization. Okay, so that's we did part 1. Part 1 is long. Part 2, 3, and 4, it gets shorter than part 1. Part 3 is shorter than part 2. Anyways, compartmentalization. So a good quote is, don't make a permanent decision for your temporary emotion. So what we're saying there is, so you feel an emotion, you're angry, so don't slug the guy and in your relationship for all time because you were angry. All right. Instead, what you have to do is you have to compartmentalize. You have to put that anger aside. Now, before in emotional literacy, we were talking about description and mapping the memory and everything like that. You're not going to really do the description part always. This is not necessarily in order. Okay, you might recognize your emotion, and you might skip the whole expressing yourself portion, describing that emotion. You might have to skip that, and then get to that later. You might have to compartmentalize first. You have to skip stages. You might jump from emotional literacy. You might do emotional literacy number 1, and then just recognize that emotion 1. All you do is recognize it. You're not going to have time to admit to it, and you're not going to have time to describe it. You got to compartmentalize, and you got to go. When can this happen? Hey, maybe you feel fear because someone got hurt. Well, you don't have time to talk about a situation in the past when someone got hurt. You've got to go help that person. So you're going to skip to the description portion, and you're going to jump to emotional compartmentalization. Okay, so sometimes you're going to skip this and just jump straight to this. So we want to make it clear that we're not suppressing the emotion. Okay. All we're doing is putting it away for a minute. And compartmentalization is only temporary. It's only temporary so we can get something done. It's not supposed to be permanent. You're not supposed to permanently compartmentalize your emotions. That's unhealthy. So there are different defense mechanisms. Some are always bad. Some can be bad and some can be good. So this is what we're going to do when we feel these emotions. We're going to go into denial, which is like the 5 stages of grief. Okay, and we're going to refuse to acknowledge the emotion. We'll compartmentalize it. You just refuse to acknowledge it. That's temporarily, if you do it by denial, then denial can be bad sometimes, and sometimes it can be good. If you're going to the 5 stages of grief, it's good. But then if you stay in denial, then it's bad because you're never admitting to that emotion. A lot of people never want to admit that they get angry. They don't want to admit that they get sad. That's not good. Suppression is not always bad. It's not always good. Okay, that's when you acknowledge the occurrence, but you avoid it. Okay. Suppression is good in a way because if you know that anger isn't good for you, so you try to stay away from things that make you angry. That's fine. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, suppression is bad. At all costs, avoid feeling angry. Like you avoid, you won't put you refuse to put yourself in a position where you can get angry. That's when suppression is bad. Okay. Reaction formation. So reaction formation, that's when you act different than how you really feel. You've seen this a lot of times on the playground where kids will like a girl, a little boy will like a girl, and instead of giving her flowers, he'll hit her. That's reaction formation. Okay. A situation where we see more as adults is when you invite someone out to, like you have a plan to go out to the movies with somebody, and they say, oh, I can't go. And then you say, oh, well, I didn't really want to go to the movies anyways. That's reaction formation. You did want to go, but you act like you didn't want to go. That's reaction formation. That can be good, if you're trying to comfort someone, if you know that you're trying to help somebody, like they forgot your birthday and then they apologize, and you try to comfort. You just say, oh, it wasn't a big deal, even though it was a big deal. You just try to make them feel better. Or if you don't like someone and you treat them nice even though you don't like them, that's good reaction formation. A bad reaction formation is when you really do want to get flowers, or you really do want to be treated a certain way, and you always deny that you really want that treatment. That's a bad reaction formation. Like if you really want your birthday to be celebrated, and you always tell people, oh, don't celebrate my birthday, that's a bad one. If you want your birthday to be celebrated, you should tell people, yeah, let's have a party. Sublimation. Sublimation is usually good. Sublimation is when you're angry and you go for a run, and so you write a poem. That's sublimation. And that can be pretty good. It can be bad if you work out too much, or if that can be bad. Or if you don't, or if you work out, or you do something to make you feel better, but then you never really you never really get to the description portion where you actually tell someone how you felt and why you felt it. If you never get there, then that's not good. Now we move over to the always bad column. Displacement is the first one. That one is really bad. Okay. Displacement is when you're upset at what someone did, but then you take it out on somebody else. So you're upset at your husband, and so because you're upset at your husband, you hit your kids. That's displacement, and that's really bad. Okay. Rationalization. So rationalization is very bad. That's when when you produce reasonable facts for a false explanation. Okay, so basically you're making excuses. All right. You you're angry or you're happy with someone, and then you make up reasons why. Like, or maybe you love this person or something like that, and you make up reasons why you feel the way you feel instead of just admitting to it. That's always bad. It's basically living a lie. The worst thing about it is it's living a reasonable lie. It's like, oh well, this is true. Like, it actually is true that this person does this, but that's just an excuse for what you're doing or how you're taking it. So compensation is always bad. That's when you ignore something and then you focus on something else. Okay, that's you need to admit that you have a certain emotion. Regression, that's when you move backwards and you act in a way that you don't want to act. You act in a way where you've already resolved that that's not the way you want to be. Okay, that's regression. Or it's like you go back to a time, or it can be that you go back to a time where you don't want to face whatever you're facing right now, and you go back to the past. Like, you want to go hang out with your old friends instead of deal with something with your new friends, something like that. Or go hang out with your mom and dad when you need to be at work. It's regression. Repression is out. That's like just that's when you need to see a psychiatrist. Repression is when you completely deny, or not even deny that it happened. That's when you don't even remember it happening. Like, you just put it into a place in your mind where it doesn't exist for you. And if that's the case, if you have something that's so traumatic that you refuse to admit that it happened, you need professional help. Okay. All right. All this stuff should be temporary. In other words, it should be permanent. We want to always get to the point where we're describing, we're telling people what happened. Okay. So and so if you're not careful with compartmentalization, when you compartmentalize, if you're not careful, you can end up having cognitive dissonance. Okay, there's a danger with compartmentalizing for a long time. Okay, and what cognitive dissonance is? Just another word for hypocrisy. That's when you recognize that something is wrong, or you see something wrong, but you somehow say, oh no, it's okay. Okay, when it clearly goes against your principles. And so here's an example. When America calls itself the land of the free and the home of the brave. Okay, that was our national anthem, right? But there was slavery when the national anthem started. So how can you say this is the land of the free when there's slavery there? That's called cognitive dissonance. You know that people should be free, yet you still have slaves. Cognitive dissonance. And it's even in your song. It's even in your national anthem, right? And yet they still have slavery. Dissonance. It's like saying that, hey, we have Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. It's like, what? That's the oxymoron. How can you have Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia? Anyways, not that there's something wrong with Liberty University, but this is also when when you have like the Statue of Liberty, where it says, give me your tired, give me your like, I don't know what the Statue of Liberty says, but then you don't welcome in refugees. Okay. When you teach that you're supposed to welcome strangers, you hear it a lot of churches. In a lot of churches, you have this the evangelical right. In churches, this is what they teach. Seriously, they teach that you're supposed to welcome strangers. They teach this in evangelical Christian churches. But then these same evangelical Christian churches will say, hey, we need to build a wall to stop people from coming. Well, that's cognitive dissonance, because you're teaching one thing in your church, but then you're actually doing something else. Somehow they're finding a place in their mind where it's okay to treat a Latin American different, or to treat a G differently. You know, but it just, the two cannot really coexist, but somehow they justify it. And then, here we go. Geneva Convention. We have, or just, so the United States has agreements that we don't kill non-combatants, right? If there's someone with a red cross on their vehicle, you don't shoot up the vehicle. I was in the Marine Corps for 5 years. I did tours in Iraq. So there's rules about killing non-combatants. Okay, you don't attack a vehicle with a red cross on it, for example, or a red crescent on it. Okay, and you don't harm anyone without a weapon, or anyone who's like a child. Okay, so those are the rules of war. We have rules in war. But then the same country who agreed to those rules drops 2 atomic bombs in Japan. Okay, the atomic bomb was an equal opportunity killer. It did not segregate between women and children and combatants. It killed everyone. So it's cognitive dissonance when you say that it's okay to drop an atomic bomb on a schoolhouse, because I think Nagasaki landed actually on a schoolhouse. It's okay to drop an atomic bomb on a school, but it's not okay to kill non-combatants. What? How does that work? No, the two can't coexist. It is wrong to drop an atomic bomb. If it's wrong to kill non-combatants, then it's wrong to drop an atomic bomb. Then that's breaking the laws of war, and there should be penalties for that. People should be going. I mean, they're all the guys who were involved in that are now either passed away or extremely old, but there should have been a punishment for that. Laws of war. Pearl Harbor, that was an attack on a military base, right? It was a surprise attack, yes, but it was an attack on a military. It was a military target. And then you even have some cognitive dissonance in the Bible. Matthew 5:42 says to feed everyone. When asked of it, you give it to them. While 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says if they're not willing to work and they're not willing to eat, then they can't eat. And that's a cognitive dissonance for someone to say that those can be in harmony. They can't be in harmony. Say give to anyone who asks, and then say, oh, but if they're not willing to work, don't give it to them. It's one or the other. To defend the Bible isn't really the Bible is not contradicting itself when it says that, as long as you understand that the purpose of the Bible is to say that Jesus is the only one who's perfect, and to say that Jesus is the only one who did it right. Because if you understand that that's the purpose and that's what the message is, then you will also understand that when Paul says these things in 2 Thessalonians and in other things that contradict Jesus in other books of the Bible, it's okay because Paul is human and Paul is supposed to make mistakes. Now, if Jesus said something contradictory to something he said, then that would be a problem. But Jesus never does that. But there are churches who believe that everything Paul said was right, and everything that Jesus said was right. You can't believe everything Paul said is right and everything Jesus says is right. Either Jesus said it all right, or Paul said it all right, as we want to, because Paul and Jesus contradict each other. Cognitive dissonance. You have it in a lot of places. Emotional maturity. So an emotional mature person has mastered. So we're back at emotion. So in our steps now are emotional recollection. Okay. So emotional recollection is when you recall an emotion from the past. Actors use it a lot. Okay. You do it when you look at photographs and watch movies. You remember things from the past. So, you know, like emotional recollection is, you know, you just recall something that happened in order to it's just recalling an old emotion. You know, and you can do it. You can use it when you're acting. You can use it in. You can use it. You can use the recollection to. You need to do it when you're reading history books and reading newspapers, because in order to understand where the witnesses in a statement, or if you're in a courtroom, understand where the witnesses come from, you have to recall on your own emotions. Okay, so like if a witness is describing being afraid, if you don't recall yourself also being afraid, then you cannot do a good judgment. That's why it's so important to have a jury of your peers, not a jury of people who have no idea where you come from, but a jury of people who have an idea of what it's like to be the person who's on the stand. That's why you need a jury of your peers, not just a bunch of jury of people who are nothing like you. It doesn't work that way. So when we get into this portion of you know, of emotional recollection, we want to talk about how it's very valuable in order to empathize and to build relationships. And remember, we talked about how everything overlaps. This is the area where emotional development strongly overlaps with social development. Okay, but this would be a social development skill. All right, if that makes sense. Or this would be an emotional development skill, but it can be used very well with social development. So let's talk about when we do emotional recollection. A lot of times we'll see someone who's experiencing something, and we'll decide that we need to do emotional recollection. All right, and we will have an opportunity to either sympathize with someone or empathize with someone. Okay, so what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Sympathy is when you agree about how someone is feeling, and then you acknowledge that person is feeling that. But with empathy, you're not just acknowledging it, but you're allowing yourself to feel it with that person. So because of that, sympathy requires you to have emotional literacy, but it does not require you to have emotional recollection. Okay, you don't have to recall your emotions of the past in order to sympathize, but you do need to recall your emotions of the past in order to. Okay, now sympathy, what it really does is sympathy encourages disconnection and discourages connection, because you may acknowledge that they feel a certain way, but you're not allowing yourself to feel that with them. So when you allow yourself to feel that with them, you actually build a stronger connection with them. Okay, so we're going to watch a video to illustrate this. And you guys know my timing on my video is not the best in the world, but we're going to do the best we can to get this done. Just give it a second. Here we go. Oh, let me try this again. Hold on.
So what is empathy?
There we go.
And why is it very different than sympathy?
Oh,
Empathy
I'm freezing.
fuels connection.
Hold on.
Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar.
All right, let's try this again.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations, things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
All right, so hopefully the sound wasn't too bad on that, and hopefully that makes sense on that whole what we're talking about with the emotional growth and development piece. Okay, and the this empathy. So empathy is desired. Sympathy is not so desired. Okay, especially when we're trying to build someone up. Okay. And trying to build a relationship. If obviously, if you don't want to connect with somebody, then be sympathetic. If you do want to connect, you gotta be empathetic. You gotta do that emotional recollection. You gotta call on that emotion from the past in order to empathize. All right, builds relationships, makes the world a better place. When someone's sad, you should be sad. When someone's happy, you should be happy with them. Yeah. Other ways that you can recall emotions is through and teach how to recall emotions is through movies, through books. All right. You can watch a movie together, can help to build opportunity for emotional recollection and building stronger bonds. Sharing music, art, going to art gallery, talking about how art makes you feel. All these are, that's why these things are also very spiritual. So we talk about how the whole person development overlaps. Well, this kind of overlaps in the spiritual development, because part of spiritual development is sharing that emotion with other people and sharing that love with other people. So that's how that goes over. Everything overlaps, all this emotional, spiritual. In order to recollect, you need to have the cognitive ability to do it too. So it all overlaps. So the fourth one, and like I said, this gets shorter every time, is the emotional capitalization. That one is hard to do. But what emotional capitalization? This is the ability to use emotions to mobilize people. That's when you can do a speech that changes the world. Because it requires you putting your soul into that message. You have to take your soul and put it into that message. You know, a lot of people do it through song. Michael Jackson, he changed the world through his music. You know, President Obama, he you know, he, like a lot of people, you know, they really didn't appreciate the Affordable Care Act getting passed, universal health care in America. But now that you see the Republicans are struggling to get theirs passed, you see how big a deal it was that he got that passed. He did a good job. He was a good president. It necessitates passion. And I'm not saying that I agree with everything President Obama did, but he was a good president and he was powerful. I don't think you can deny that. They copy his speeches all around the world. Necessitates passion. You got to be passionate, and it engenders spiritual connection. Okay, it brings everyone to be one mind and one voice. It's that Holy Spirit connection that we talk about in spiritual development. And this is not an easy thing to do. You know, if it's something that you can't really be taught, you have to learn emotional capitalization. It can be learned but not taught. So here are the stages of emotional growth and development. You know, we talked about all these things. Emotional recognition is the first stage. The child understands his emotions and can explain them. Emotional compartmentalization, that's you know, ages 4 to 12, demonstrates self-control. Emotional recollection, 13 to 18. That's when the child can recall the memories and apply that to someone else's situation. And then the last one, emotional capitalization, I put that this is 18 to 30 years, but really it's probably for forever. No, you know, not, I mean, it's just something that you're always going to be working on forever. But you should be able to do it by 30. You should be able to do it, just maybe not with a big group of people. Okay. So that is the end of the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing. And that was Little Leaven 201, Emotional Growth and Development. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that you learned from it. I wish this light was better. I look like a shadow, but that's okay. You know, please continue to support Little Leaven Children's Homes. There we go. Please continue to support Little Leaven Children's Homes. We hope to see you out there making a difference for these kids and loving these kids and teaching these kids to love others and making the world a better place. The kingdom of God's like a little leaven. Thank you. God bless.